Today, we're going to unpack the incredible story of Nidec. It's a fantastic tale of how a company that started with just one simple component, the motor, managed to build a global technology empire. And they did it with a strategy that was just relentless and, frankly, brilliant. I mean, think about it for a second. Our daily lives run on countless tiny invisible engines. And what's wild is that, in a surprising number of cases, the answer is a motor from just one company. A company that has quietly become absolutely essential to modern life. And just to give you a sense of scale, check this out. This is Nidec's recent annual sales. Over 2 trillion yen. When you see a number that massive, you know one thing for sure. This isn't just some company making parts. No, this is a genuine global powerhouse. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll get a look at this Nidec motor empire. Then, we'll talk about the dangerous HDD trap they found themselves in and how they escaped. That leads us to their M&A-powered revolution, and we'll see the totally new business they built. And finally, we'll look at their next absolutely massive goal, hitting 10 trillion yen.
All right, first up, the Nidec motor empire. Seriously, their story is like a masterclass in taking something really specific, a niche product, and turning it into the foundation of a global giant.
And the journey itself is just staggering. I mean, just picture it. A tiny startup with only 4 people. And from that, they grew into this massive global group with over 100,000 employees and more than 300 companies under their belt. It sounds like a Silicon Valley fairy tale, right? But this happened on a massive industrial scale. But here's the thing. Underneath all that success, there was a huge hidden vulnerability. And to really get it, we have to rewind the clock to around the year 2000. Because back then, even with all its growth, Nidec was in a really precarious spot. They were basically walking a tightrope. And here's why. This is where the real danger was. Back around 2000, pretty much Nidec's entire business depended on one single product. Those little spindle motors inside computer hard drives, HDDs. An unbelievable 80% of their sales came from that one market. Talk about having all your eggs in one basket.
And you have to remember, back then, the company was a shadow of what it is today. In 2001, their sales were around 137 billion yen. Now, over 2 trillion. Their market cap? It's gone from a few hundred billion to over 5 trillion yen. Being that much smaller just made them way more vulnerable if the market suddenly changed.
So this extreme dependency created what we can call the HDD trap. They were completely hooked. Any little dip in the PC market, any new kind of storage technology, and it could be a total disaster for them. And this wasn't just some theory. When HDD demand actually did slow down in the late 90s, Nidec's finances went into the red. They realized, okay, we have to diversify or we might actually go under. And that brings us to their solution. And it was brilliant. A strategy that didn't just save the company, it completely redefined it. What they did was launch an M&A-powered revolution. This quote from the founder, Shigenobu Nagamori, really gets to the heart of it. For him, M&A wasn't just about snapping up new tech or factories. In a business culture like Japan, where your reputation and track record mean everything, he was buying something you can't build overnight. He was buying history. He was buying trust. He was buying instant credibility. And this timeline here really shows you just how smart they were about it. Let's just walk through a few of these. So in 2003, they buy Senkyo Seiki. Why? For its critical FDB technology. This was a game changer for making hard drives quieter and more reliable. Then, jump to 2006, they grab Valeo's motor division. Boom! Suddenly they're in the European car market. The 2010 Emerson deal, that got them into the huge North American appliance market. And look at the more recent ones, buying Almiron's automotive electronics, even buying machine tool companies. These were all very deliberate moves to get all the pieces in place for the EV revolution.
And what's really interesting is how their whole approach evolved over time. In the 2000s, you could call it defensive M&A, buying up smaller companies to get away from that HDD risk. But then, starting in the 2010s, it completely flipped. It became offensive M&A. They started doing these massive international deals to straight up conquer new markets like automotive and EVs. The goal wasn't just to survive anymore, it was to dominate.
So, okay, after 20 years of buying companies, what did it all add up to? Let's take a look at the company they built, the Nidec of today.
And the change is just incredible. Remember that first chart? The one with 80% from hard drives? Well, look at Nidec now. The biggest chunk of their business is from appliances, commercial, and industrial motors. Right behind that is automotive. Their original business?
It's just a small piece of a much, much bigger and healthier company. The HDD trap, completely gone.
This chart really says it all, doesn't it? You see the insane sales growth from about 137 billion yen all the way up to over 2.2 trillion. But the real turning point, the key moment, is right here in 2017. That's the year when all the new businesses they bought finally started making more money than their original precision motor business. That was the moment they knew the revolution had worked.
So how does Nidec stack up against the competition? Well, their strategy's pretty unique. They see a giant like Germany's Bosch as their benchmark, but Bosch is this huge established player. Then you have their old rival Mabuchi Motor, who decided to stick to what they know, just specializing. Nidec is different. What makes them stand out is the pure speed of their M&A growth and this huge ambition to sell entire systems, not just the motors that go inside them.
But here's the kicker. Nidec is not done. Not by a long shot. So now, let's look ahead to their next challenge, which is frankly monumental.
So where are they aiming? They're focused on the huge global markets of the future, all of which have motors right at their core. We're talking about EVs, where they're building these integrated e-axle systems that pack the motor, gears, and electronics all into one unit. We're talking about factory automation, robotics, green energy, all that labor-saving tech. Every big purchase they make now is like a chess move designed to position them to dominate these exact fields.
And this number shows you just how big they're thinking. Their stated goal is to hit 10 trillion yen in sales by the year 2030. Let that sink in. That is almost 5 times bigger than they are right now. It's a goal so huge, so audacious, that it forces everyone in the company to operate on a totally different wavelength.
And that really brings us to the big final question, doesn't it? Nidec basically perfected a strategy for using M&A to take over existing industries. But is that same playbook going to work when you're trying to build and lead the next generation of technology from the ground up? The race to 10 trillion yen has begun, and honestly, the whole world is watching to see if they can actually do it.